now you guys are very, very lucky. You've got me for about 20 odd minutes. So let's see if I can share my screen. So off we go. So anyway, a little bit about me. Obviously, you guys have know me already, but just for our friends on Zoom who don't know me, I'm a denim designer. I've been a denim designer for 20 years. Okay, very good, very good. I've got a brand called ENDRIME that I run together with my wife. It's immensely fun when you do your own brand and you can start doing lots of things that you always wanted to do, which is really quite fun. But also experimenting with fibers and patterns and things that you don't normally get to do in bigger brands. So it's fun, but I would say always make your mistakes with other people's money first before you attempt to do anything yourself. That's my idea. Okay, so the point of this presentation is really about like recycling. Now, I'm quite lucky. I've gone to a few different recycling plants, and I went to one before COVID, which is this one here. This is a company called AFM, and they've actually sponsored us like before. And it's an amazing mill. They're one of the artistics. There's actually like a few of them, but this particular one's all pretty much run by ladies. So it's really quite cool for that reason. But I'm going to play a video. It's 2 minutes long and explains about how they recycle. And then I'll carry on doing my presentation. So hopefully I won't balls this up.
Artistic Fabric Mill being one of the biggest supplier in terms of the recycled material. We're here in our recycling plant, which is known as La Roche. We bring in the garments through a proper certified source, complying with all the proper certifications. We use these garments as a raw material for our recycle plant, separating the cotton and the polyester apart. Then we shred them using our La Roche plant. Then we create out the recycled PCW cotton. That PCW cotton is then converted into a PCW yarn, which is then used in the fabric to make denim. So at this point, we are one of the pioneers from Pakistan using the high-tech machinery of shredding, which is certified through a number of our brands which we are running at the moment.
When it comes to sustainability, we like to break down our process from fiber to finish and try to find sustainable solutions at every stage. A big part of our product portfolio is made from recycled cotton, and we are consistently experimenting with other sustainable or alternate fibers such as hemp, tencel, and more recently biodegradable nylon. AFM was also one of the first mills in the region to set up a GRS certified cotton recycling plant in 2015. And since then, we have run our post-consumer waste program very successfully, even achieving certified supply status for some leading European brands. Almost our entire collection has at least 5% recycled cotton fiber, and we offer that without any additional upcharge. More recently, we have developed a line of fabrics that uses recycled mill waste to close the loop on our own manufacturing process. And given the success of both of these programs, we are planning on expanding our recycling initiatives in the future.
Hey, okay, so that was quite cool. So AFM, they're one of do you know what's quite amazing? I've been to so many like recycling plants, and it's actually our friends in Pakistan that are leading the way when it comes to like like recycling. So don't be put off on, if you get an opportunity to visit one of these places, do it. So that's my recommendation. So as she said, well, something that I was alarmed about when I was visiting these places, because when I think things are being recycled, I think everything's being recycled, but actually not really. There are, don't get me wrong, there are machines that you throw a whole jean in and it gets shredded up, even with the metal, and it sifts all the metal out. But those machines are very, very expensive, and they're kind of a newer generation. So most of the machines that we come across when we go to places that recycle garments are the ones that we just saw in that actual video. So this is an example of the bits that they actually cut out. They only cut out the sections where they're large sections. They don't go over any of the seams. They avoid any pockets. They avoid any buttons or trims. They just cut round them. So most of the time, it's about 30 or 40% or probably more that gets wasted. And this is properly wasted. This is like stuff that goes into a landfill or it's burnt. So don't think that, oh, this garment is fully recyclable. I've done my job. I've recycled it. No, we need to think kind of differently when it comes to actually making a circular garment. So this is an example of how when we recycle garments, we only take bits from them. And most of the time it's done like this. So it's quite interesting. There's one more video I'm going to play. And I actually was lucky enough to interview Steve, and he's the founder of like Beyond Like Retro. And he'll tell you about his story. It's about 4.5 minutes, and then it's straight me talking, okay?
Our company has been in the used clothing business for 25 years. So my perspective on the conversation in front of us is about this collection of post-consumer, and as Miguel calls it, waste. In America, or typically in Europe as well, after somebody has worn their clothes, the typical life expectancy of a garment in a closet in the West is 2.5 years. So somebody buys something, they wear it for 2.5 years. Typically what happens is they put it in a bin bag and they donate it to a local charity. Those charities will then go through the product and pick out what they can sell in the charity shops. And that typically is about 25% of what is donated. And really the charity shops in North America typically sell about 25% of what they get donated. What happens to the other 75%? So guys like our company, Bank and Vogue, we buy those containers of goods and we send them around the world. We have a facility in Karachi. We also have a facility in Kandla. But in these zones, we sort the product into reuse. The first thing we want to do is we want to capture the best economic value of the clothes that we get, the secondhand clothes. I think all of us need to change our headspace that used clothes is not waste. Used clothes is an opportunity that just needs to be unlocked. So I'm going to erase the word waste out of everybody's head. One of the surprising things is what is the input to recycling? So denim, about 7% of used clothes is denim. Of that, what actually then, if we can't reuse it, what can we do with the denim? And I would like to first inspire is if we can't reuse an item, can we cut it up as a component for an input to a new item? So we work with Converse to actually make the upper for the Chuck Taylor shoe out of post-consumer, that's secondhand jeans. Why is this important? If you grow 1 kilogram of organic cotton, it takes 13 kilograms of carbon to make 1 kilogram of organic cotton. If you can reuse a fabric, that is, cut it up in its existing state, don't rip it apart into fibers. If you can cut it up and turn it into a component, and if you can do this at scale, this takes only 3 kilograms of carbon. I also think that's really important, focusing in on denim. Americans buy 450 million pairs of jeans a year. That one of the big problems about jeans that come, secondhand jeans that come from the United States, is there's 36, 38, 40, 42 inch waist size jeans. Really big. There's a lot of fat people in America. So as fashion, we can say that. So the reuse market for those jeans is somewhat limited. And a lot of the jeans that actually we as a business prepare and get ready for recycling is they actually are in really good condition. The fibers are really good, but the problem is either the style or size, there's a limited secondhand market. But I absolutely believe that the third industrial revolution will be us figuring out how we use our existing resources at scale as an input to new manufacturing. Our facility in Kandla and our facility in Karachi, we pre-process denim and we sort it and grade it. So we can sort product for chemical recycling and we can sort product for mechanical recycling. I think that the real opportunity in front of us on the chemical side, it should be said that most of the chemical technologies, so we are one of the largest suppliers to Renewcell, a Swedish company that has figured out a way to replace wood pulp with used or cellulose-rich product, cotton-rich product. So we supply denim to Renewcell to be able to make viscose fiber. And what's really exciting about this chemical transformation, as was said earlier, is that we can reprocess the material and turn it into an input that replaces wood pulp. Basically, we don't have to cut trees down to be able to make a new fiber. And the real opportunity if I was 25 years younger and said, what do I want to do with my life in terms of contributing to a positive fashion forward, I would say is, how can I collect the things that are and make new things from them? How can I actually not damage or rely on virgin material to be able to create a new material?
Well, an absolute dude. Okay, 1 second. So let me just get my presentation up. So I thought it was quite important to share that. And that's like a 20-minute presentation. I cut it down to 5 minutes. By all means, go on the Transformers website, go on the Learn Hub. There's so many videos about cotton, recycling, loads of amazing speakers from only like 6 months ago that are all like relevant. So don't be afraid to watch some of these videos, but I thought it was good to include that clip in. So the countries, so something that he mentioned actually, but I cut it out of his recording, was why are all the recycled garments ending up in one or two like locations? It's for the reason that if you went all around America and you collected loads of garments and then you sorted it out in one country, be it Pakistan or Bangkok or in like Canada, they're the main kind of hubs. That's where a lot of vintage actually is. But there's another story as well that's quite interesting. Is like back in 1947, when Pakistan and India became independent, USA actually gave aid to Pakistan, which is quite interesting, and they gave it in garment form. So actually Pakistan, as well as Bangkok or some other regions around there, became quite big hubs for vintage garments. So if you ever go hunting, always go hunting in these places. But also another fun fact is most of the denim that we wear today, about 50% of it is made in these 5 countries: China, India, Turkey, Pakistan, or Bangladesh. It doesn't mean that these countries make cheap denim. Actually, most of these countries produce amazing fiber as well. It's just that there's a lot of trade agreements with countries, so a lot of cheaper garments get made in these countries. But by all means, these countries can all make super duper premium fabric too. So don't be disarray going, oh, it's from China or whatever it is. That actually is actually meaningless. You can get amazing fibers from all of these places. Anyway, something that was mentioned in like Miguel's presentation and the presentation we just heard as well is actually there's a few major players when it comes to recycled fiber, which you might come across as like designers. You've heard about Tencel and you've heard about Fibres from our friends at like Candiani, and that's 50% wood and 50% textile waste. Super sustainable. No virgin cotton has gone like near it. So everyone wants to use it. It's amazing for the water savings, also for the energy savings. It's quite cool. And then there's also like sort of like Renewcell as well, which is coming through, which is 100% textile waste. There's a few others as well, but these are the two that you might come across more when you're looking through some of the fabrics that you've been sponsored over the next few weeks. Little fun fact about, you can get 100% recycled garments, like 100% garment that's fully made from like recycled fiber, but most of the time they're done with post-industrial waste. So this is waste from the factory itself. If you make a garment from post-consumer waste, that's garments that you would give into a charity shop, probably about 30 or 40% of that can be achieved with a sort of fabric. So if you come across any denim and it's more than 40% like recycled, most probably they've mixed some post-industrial waste in there too. But what we're finding is that people are mixing in hemp with it, Tencel with it. So actually it's got the attributes of something super strong with a tiny bit of like recycled sort of element. And AFM, in that video that I played right at the start, they actually said that every single one of their fabrics, 5% automatically gets a like recycled fiber, even without asking. So they're making it as a standard now to put recycled content in every single fabric that they make. So recycling is not a trend. It's actually, it's a resource, just like Stephen said. So it's very important. Recycled polyester and polyester in like general. I've got mixed feelings about it. You heard our friends at Candiani, there are polyesters that have been made that within 5 to 10 years, they can like degrade. But most of the time, that's a very expensive kind of polyester. So all the kind of stretch jeans or any polyester jeans that you might come across, they will last 100 years if you buried them in the ground. So it's a bit of a slight issue here when it comes to just the whole sustainability angle and with polyester. In my personal like kind of opinion. Obviously, a little fun fact here also. If we carry on going down the same route as what we are now, using all our oil-based products, using petrochemicals to dye, using petrochemicals to make polyester and all these fibers, we're going to run out anyway if we carry on down this route. So we do need it. We do need an alternative, definitely in the future or going forward. So the fact that there's hemp and all these other fibers that are coming through, and all those fibers that like Miguel mentioned, about 15 or like 20 of them that are all amazing options. It's actually quite an exciting time to be a designer and start actually playing with these fibers to make denim. So it's very cool. But this is quite an interesting fact. We're gonna run out, so we have to have sort of alternative. The main issues I find with polyester is that it's in everything. You know, it's so ingrained in what we wear, like to the point where it's in our, you know, it's every single time we wash a garment and it's polyester based, those particles go into the water. They're eaten by fish. They found there's a credit card amount of polyester or plastic in each of us right now, a credit card amount. It's really quite shocking. And they found it in babies, they found it in blood. It's shocking. So we need to wean ourselves off this, you know, this sort of a slow cancer that's happening to us. And a lot of these bigger companies are being very silent about it and not really announcing what they're doing. But the more we can move away from it personally is actually better. And a little fun thing that I always show to my students is this is a little tag, and it says that every garment that contains this warning, this garment contains 100% sort of polyester, which is a derivative of crude oil, sheds microplastic when washed, harmful if swallowed. This should be in every single polyester, sportswear, Nike, Adidas, Puma, you name it garment. It won't be, but it should. It really, really should. Okay, and the little polyester thing is also, we've been finding out quite recently, obviously we've been using, and we can date, through archaeology, we can date the ground when how old the ground is now by the polyester particles that they can find. And also, there's some really wonderful examples that have been coming up from the 70s and 80s when we started using polyester. This is quite a famous garment. If you research it, there's a really famous designer called like Sean Gormley from Wrangler, who posted this picture of a garment that he bought, and it was found in a field, and all of the cotton had completely disappeared, but the polyester stayed. So, you know, it's still wearable, which is crazy, but the cotton's gone. And even the leather patch is fake, the buttons are still there, the indigo is still there, because the indigo is also petrochemical based. Even if you have a super duper amazing garment, 100% cotton, 100% biodegradable, we're still using petrochemicals to dye it. So that's also a slight issue that we're finding. But this is a great example of how polyester is a problem that we're facing. Even though it's a cool image, and I'm sure I'm sure half your students would probably love to wear it, but it's actually quite shocking for like me. But Candiani mentioned there's loads of other technologies that are happening, because most of the denim that we wear is stretch based. It's mostly men really, which is quite funny. A load of you ladies are actually into your 100% sort of fabrics, but stretch is becoming, you know, most of us want that comfort stretch. So actually it's important. So we need to find an alternative technology for this comfort stretch, and our friends at Candiani have already come up with one using natural like rubber and wrapping cotton like around it. So quite amazing, and lots more of these technologies are going to be coming through, because many more people are going to the race of trying to be more sustainable and thinking about using like recycled like fibers too. This is something just about indigo really. This is an old garment from it's pre-1897, found down a mine. They would have used natural indigo to dye it, which is quite cool. But there are newer fibers that we're producing, like even Tencel, which is that amazing fiber that comes from wood chips. They've come up with a new version, which is Tencel model with indigo color, like sort of technology. This one is amazing, 99% water savings, heat savings, energy savings. On paper, it's unbelievable. But there's one thing that lets it down, is the fact that they're still using a chemical indigo to dye it. But I know for a fact that they are speaking to Stony Creeks and Hughes, that bacteria-based indigo sort of company. So these technologies are so close that within the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to see natural indigo-based and bacteria-based indigos used as a replacement for this petrochemical-based indigo dye. So it's very exciting stage to be in. So we're nearly there. We're nearly there. And then when it comes to circular designs, obviously all of you guys are designing in groups. There's like 15 of you. We're going to be designing a collection. It's super important that you think about designing in a circular way. Now it could be, is it zero waste? Is it that the whole garment can be taken apart? Is it that the garment can like disappear if it's put into the ground? These things are super important now. But don't believe, you know, there's so much of it. Everyone's claiming that they're doing this already, but there's so much greenwashing that's happening, where it's actually confusing the market. Even our friends at like Ellen and MacArthur Foundation are allowing Primark to use their branding as saying this jean is fully sustainable, and it's not. So just be very careful when you do make your collection and you say all these attributes, don't be afraid, because some of these judges are going to be quite harsh and ask you quite serious questions about it. So if you are using a polyester, make a point of it, going, I want this garment to be lasting forever. We're not going to use, you're not going to wash it very much. So have an argument of what you're going to do, because you don't want to be like this and get, you know, this is, I think over 20,000 people commented on this post that I wrote, which is quite funny. So be careful. I design collections, and I always think about, now for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been thinking very carefully about, I want to design a collection that can be recycled. I don't want to have that instance where they're cutting around the buttons and cutting around the pockets and, you know, and cutting and basically leaving out the seams, because most like stitching is also polyester based, if you didn't know. So, you know, we invented this only because for strength. If you use a cotton thread on your garment, you realize that it's very, very weak after a few washes. So of course we use polyester thread, but there are alternatives now that do exist. But regarding trims, we are being sponsored by YKK. So we're going to get you a screw-on buttons. So it's going to be quite fun. And hopefully we can get some of them branded too. Rivets is something that I love. The jean was invented because of the rivet. But now I've come to the conclusion, actually, I don't think I can use rivets anymore. It's very sad state of state. So now I've reverted to using circle bar tacks and bar tacking, because rivets are very difficult to remove, very difficult to remove. So if you're in a recycling center, you have 10 seconds or 15 seconds to pull a garment apart and throw it in the pile. If you've got a rivet, you're just going to cut round it. If you've got a bar tack, they're just going to leave it in there and get it like recycled. So think quite carefully if you are going down this circular route. And yeah, more. So for me, recycled fibers are definitely the future. They're not going away. More and more mills like Candiani, more of our Pakistani mill, name any mill. And this is not just denim. I mean, denim's leading it, really. If you look at any innovation that's happening in like recycling, it's coming from the denim world. When it comes to recycled fibers, this is something that you as designers going forward are going to come across a lot more. Don't be afraid to mix in a tiny bit of recycled element, or go for it and do 40 or 60 or 60% recycled. You'll be amazed how slubby and how much texture you can get from it if you mix a tencel, lyocell, or hemp or something else up with it, which is quite cool. There was a video I'm going to play, but we're short of time. But I'm going to put it in the presentation when I upload it in a few days' time. But it's the story of how I found this trucker jacket, which is quite awesome. So look out for that like recording in a few days' time.
My name's Mohsin. I'm a denim designer and historian, and I've been in the industry working for about 20 years. I've always been an avid collector of vintage garments and travel the world searching for garments from everywhere, from America, parts of like Europe, even Asia and Bangkok, as well as like Japan. I use all the vintage garments that I collect in all of my denim history classes and seminars when I teach how to make jeans. So I'm always explaining the past and how we can make things in a new way. But the story of vintage and how things are found are always very interesting. How these garments are found nowadays is really quite inspiring. I've heard lots of myths and stories. Beginning of my career, I would normally travel to parts of America, Middle America, and parts of Japan and things like this to try and find vintage garments. But it was only about 10 years or so where I came across an article which actually discussed it, and it basically said that most of the vintage, or the best vintage that's found nowadays, is coming via Pakistan. And I never believed it. And then it's not until I became quite friendly with a number of vintage sellers, and they told me, no, it's true. We often get a lot of our stuff via Pakistan. So I did some research about it, and it turned out that after World War II, when Pakistan and India became independent, America gave aid to Pakistan, and a lot of it was actually in garment form, garments. So these garments would have been from the 30s and 40s that these bale garments were from. So anyway, that's the myth behind it. And in the last 6-7 years, I've been traveling a lot to Pakistan, and I've become very, very friendly with a number of different people, including people who are in the rag trade. And it's true, there's a lot of recycling that goes via Pakistan, so from America. and it ends up a lot. And then, you know, so it's unbelievable, really. I've found some amazing pieces that are from the 20s and 30s in Pakistan, and I found them moments away from being like destroyed. So I went to a company called AFM, Artistic Fabric Mills. These guys are shredding old garments and repurposing them to make yarn. And I happened to be there on the work trip, and I kind of invited myself, going, could I see one of your recycling plants on my final day? So I ended up going together with my wife Sadia, and good God, you know, it was amazing to see. It was a very clean space, very well organized, and there was a pile of garments ready to be sorted, and they were separating out all of the colored garments. They were separating out all of the garments that they could tell had polyester in, because they couldn't recycle these. They wanted the raw cotton. And there was a pile of stuff, you know, like duck garments and other types of garments which they're not going to use. So I went through those first. But then I knew if I spent some time looking through the garments, I would find something. And probably within 15-20 minutes of just searching through, I found a 1930s Levi's Type 1 jacket. And it was just shocking. And I knew from the fabric texture, I think the sleeve was popping out. There was no evidence it was a Levi's at this stage. It was a fabric, you know. So pulled it out, and I knew instantly what it was. And it was just unbelievable. And we ended up staying a little bit longer. But it just goes to show that, you know, the best places to look for denim might not be down a mine shaft or buried in the ground. It might be in the recycling centers that sort through garments ready to be shredded. So it was an unbelievable garment find that we had. Obviously, I've got a couple of Type 1s in my collection, but I've never had one from this earlier period. You know, it could be a 1937 period, could be slightly earlier. Unbelievable, you know. But the story of the vintage clothing trade and the trade routes, they all go through Pakistan. So, you know, even though Pakistan is producing some of the best recycled denim on the planet, and it's also a good source for inspiration as well. Having visited AFM a number of times this year, I was super impressed. Not only are these guys recycling PCW and PIW, all these recycled yarns go back into their denim fabrics they produce, an inspiring achievement for this third generation denim mill. So my advice would be for any designer who happens to travel and happens to go to a recycling plant, spend a good hour at this place and ask lots of questions, and definitely look at the stuff that they're throwing away, and definitely rummage through. You never know what you're going to find. Thanks.
And yeah, that's me, it's recycling. So isn't that amazing? So those recycled fibers, they basically blend them together and they make this bulk. And they actually, you know, even though the mill uses this for themselves, they also sell it on the open market as well. So you often do find these bales all around the world, which is quite amazing from these, because there's not many people that can recycle old garments and make bales. So actually it's becoming quite an important resource and another selling stream for some of these mills, which is quite sort of, and that's me. So if any of you do have any questions, by all means answer it.
I have a question about recycled denim, because you said that sometimes the chemicals used or like dyes to dye the denim are like harmful for people. So basically when the denim is recycled, do they like get rid of those harmful chemicals in some like process, or it just stay there?
Actually, because it gets shredded, a lot of some of these, obviously, if you're using a petrochemical dye and you're recycling, then yes, that gets absorbed into the new fiber. That's correct. But it's shredded, it's pulled apart, and in some cases, if it's done with chemical like recycling, they literally go down to this actual like cellulose like sort of level. So it kind of goes back to like default, if that makes any kind of sense. And then they redo it again. So two different ways. It's limited, but there will be some chemicals in it, but they always allow for that small percentage. Even nowadays, I was speaking to someone about thread, because most garments are made with polyester thread. Even any denim jeans that you're wearing today, most likely it's a polyester with a cotton wrap, most likely. So some like shredders and some recyclers leave the thread on the garment and they recycle it. And they say it's 100% cotton. So they allow for that 2 or 3% in the bale, which I'm not too keen on, but they say it's okay. It's so small, it's more minor, if that answers your question. Any other questions? Let's see if there's anything online. Read an article where it says polyester yarn is used in jeans and polymer low toxicity. Yes, that's kind of true. That's kind of true. There is a place for polyester. This isn't an anti-polyester conversation. We need it for firefighters' outfits. We need it for we need it for really strong garments. But making it in a jean that's going to cost 60 quid and you're going to sell it in a fast fashion, no. In my personal opinion, that's just silly. So, you know, there's places for it, but maybe not for what we're doing. If we are recycling plants in China, Bangladesh, surely it's not good for the environment to fly goods around the planet. Do you know of any plants to open near in the UK? There is something exciting happening in the UK, but I'm under NDA, so I can't talk about it. So yeah, anyway, there is watch this space. I think we're done for this presentation. So thank you so much.